More than 2 weeks after an attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, killing 4 Americans, including the U.S. ambassador to Libya there, Chris Stevens, there are still more questions than answers. Why hasn't the FBI set foot on the crime scene? At least that's what our sources are telling us. Another one. Why was the White House so late in calling it a terrorist attack? And why is there so much conflicting information coming in from the Obama administration? Just yesterday, the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, spoke about an al-Qaeda group's link to extremists in Benghazi specifically and seemed to tie it to the attack on the consulate. Let me quote her. Quote, for some time, al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and other groups have launched attacks and kidnappings from northern Mali into neighboring countries. She went on. Now, with a larger safe haven and increased freedom to maneuver, terrorists are seeking to extend their reach and their networks in multiple directions. And they are working with other violent extremists to undermine the democratic transitions underway in North Africa, as we tragically saw in Benghazi. But a senior State Department official later said Mrs. Clinton was speaking in more general terms. Let me just provide a little context here with Fran Townsend. Fran, I want to bring you in. You're a national security contributor and a member of the CIA External Advisory Committee. And just last month, you visited Libya with your employer, McAndrews and Forbes. And Fran, I know you've talked to a senior law enforcement source. What did he or she tell you when it comes to this attack in Benghazi?
Well, look, the investigators' sense from being on the ground has been they said to me day one that this was a terror attack. And I think that's consistent with what we've just heard from Barbara Starr and the statements of the Secretary of Defense. Why they were so slow to say that, look, it may be as innocuous, Brooke, as the fact that they've gone out before after incidents and put facts out there that they later had to walk back from. So it may be something as simple as they wanted to wait and get more comfort that they understood what happened. But I will tell you, having, as you pointed out, been in the region, there was no question as of late August when I was there of the increasing presence and threat of extremism and the concern that was to both Libyan and American officials on the ground in Tripoli.
And also, we should also point out another hat you wore, former Homeland and Counterterrorism Security Advisor, under President Bush. You point out perhaps some reasoning why the administration wouldn't come out immediately and say that this was a terror attack, be it fear for, investigatory purposes, security, maybe erroneous reporting. But at the same time, we just heard from Barbara Starr saying, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey, saying, that yes, there was a threat in terms of intelligence reporting. The groups in eastern Libya were looking to come together, but there was no specific threat on any one individual. What do you make of the fact that they say there were no warning signs?
Well, this is, again, what you hope is people are not splitting hairs. When I was there, people on the ground from the U.S. government were well aware of the growing extremist presence and the threat that emanated from Derna. Derna is to the east of Benghazi, and so they understood very well the threat that al-Qaeda-related extremists in Derna posed to American and Western interests. It may be that that's what General Dempsey is referring to. They understood about the growing threat. They understood about the presence there. What they may not have had intelligence indicating was a specific attack plan against the Benghazi consulate. But frankly, here's the problem, Brooke. If you knew that the extremist threat was rising, you knew that extremists had taken the opportunity to try and attack that Benghazi consulate previously, you didn't need a lot more to know that you needed to take the security concerns there more seriously and up security. And I imagine that will be part of the FBI's investigation. Who knew what? When did they know it? And what did they do about it to try and protect those Americans?
Beyond those questions, though, looking ahead, looking at Libya specifically, you have this, democratically elected government, albeit very moderate government. Without these dictators, though, as I've talked to a number of people who are very familiar with the region, they're saying that, you have these extremist groups that are very much so left unchecked. And I guess my question then would be, does the government in Libya really have control?
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty clear that they don't. Not because they're unwilling to exert it, but during this critical, sort of fragile transition time, they're trying to integrate militias into their military and their Ministry of Interior. They're trying to reestablish sort of Western rule of law, respectful intelligence and security services. This is an opportunity. You know, there's a vacuum now in Libya, not for any other reason than you're in a transition. And Al-Qaeda, we've seen time and again, Brooke, Yemen, the tribal areas, they love a vacuum where they can, or a poorly or ungoverned space, where they can take advantage of that to exert themselves. And it looks like that's exactly what they've done in eastern Libya.
And as we pointed out, FBI still not able to walk through the scene in Benghazi. Fran Townsend, thank you.